To discuss the film and what music can bring to the life of someone experiencing dementia, I am pleased to introduce our panelists. First, one of the subjects of Sunset and the Mockingbird, Gloria Mance. Gloria, thank you for sharing your love story with us. The director of the film, Jillian Gunther. Jillian, thank you for turning this highly personal love story into such a compelling work of art. And also from the film, leading Alzheimer's researcher, chair of the Cure-Alz Research Leadership Group, and himself a phenomenal keyboardist and composer, Dr. Rudy Tanzi. Thank you, Rudy, for being here today to help us understand the complexities of music and memory.
Very well.
So, if I can start with a question for Gloria. In the film, we see that music was part of how you and Junior found one another, how you worked together, and how you held on to each other during his illness. At the same time, you're clear that you loved the man, not just the musician. What did music mean to each of you as you navigated his journey with dementia?
Okay, give me a few minutes, okay?
Of course. Well, while we do that, Jillian, maybe we'll start with a question for you. What drew you to Gloria and Junior's and story? How did you get such amazing access to their intensely personal life? And what do you want all of us as the audience to feel when we watch this film?
Um, Gloria was is an educator, and she was actually, my sister was in teaching, and she was on maternity leave, and Gloria was taking over her class, and my sister said, "Oh, I think you should meet this woman. She has a really interesting story, and I think you guys would like each other." And I came in that day and I met her, and somehow I was in their lives ever, from that moment on. We started filming, and I guess they trusted me and enough to sort of hang around and be with them. And I felt this, it was something that wonderful about being with them. The amount of love that was between them felt enough to document just that. And then this extra part where Gloria was going from being his manager in professionally as a musician to personally felt familiar to so many people's stories. And I thought that it would be amazing to see a document of the caregiver experience in the very loving way in this relationship. So that is what compelled me to begin filming with them. I don't know what the second part was. What was the second part, Meg?
I was, what do you hope that audiences take away from this film?
Um, I feel like that the film is a sort of a portal into feeling less alone. I think it's one thing to get advice, but I see there's two things that Rudy says to Gloria in the film. He asks, he says to her, "How do you maintain yourself?" That's the question. And I think that's so important because I think caregivers forget that they have to care for themselves. They have to put their own masks on first. And that was so pointed for me in telling the story. The other thing he said was to roll with it rather than trying to fight it. And that just, that's Buddhism. That's the history of everything. And that was key for Gloria. And I think so many people who are trying to find the person that was there and not thinking about the person they are with and where those 2 points cross. So I hope that people feel this is a way to be connected, that they're not alone in experiencing this. And we want this film for people to take it into their communities and use it as a way to gather and spark conversation, and even as a fundraiser to support Cure Alzheimer's. So speak to you guys about that, but that's
Well, and we're very grateful for that. Gloria, if you're ready, can you tell us what you were hoping that audiences will take away from this?
I'm ready, Meg. Regardless of how many times I see the film, I'm still very emotional. I just cannot get beyond that. But I felt I was by myself when I went through this journey for 8.5 years. And I had to figure out how to go with it because there was a period of time I could not laugh. And then I realized, okay, I have one thing. He loves music. I love music. We can always connect through music. And that was my avenue. If he was confrontational, if he did not want me to shave him, whatever, I could go into a conversation. Oh, tell me about Donna Washington, even though he probably shared that story with me 50 times. Or I would say, okay, babe, we have a gig tomorrow morning. We need to get in bed every night at 8 o'clock. But even when I was not where I should be mentally, if he was happy, I truly was happy, because that music was always there, and our lives started with music, and it continues to live. And I think you just need to tap into that piece and just go with it. Because I had no control over the disease, and I like to think I'm in control 90% of the time. Just go with it.
It's most people who are walking this path with a loved one, it's not a legendary jazz musician, but there's so many commonalities to the story that you shared. Rudy, if I can turn to you and ask, how can music speak and move people with dementia when so much of their memory is gone? Why is it that it's not just legendary jazz musicians, but all dementia patients?
Well, first, I just want to say Junior Mance is a brilliant keyboardist. As a keyboardist myself, just love listening to his piano, his touch, and his soul that comes through his playing is just beyond. And you know, Gloria, when you talk about rolling with it, that's how the best musicians play together, right? They roll with it. They don't try to change the key or try to change things. And you had to become the ultimate musician rolling with Junior, and you did. And the beautiful thing is, and you had said it really wonderfully, Gloria, is that the first emotional bonds we have are with music from when we're babies, right? And then, you know, at high school and college, there's music that we love, and that music continues to stimulate us our entire lives. It's a gift that keeps on giving. And what's really wonderful is that it's a gift that doesn't go away, because even in Alzheimer's disease, if you follow the track of the pathology, the plaques, the tangles, the inflammation, etc., it goes from the short-term memory areas to the long-term memory areas. It follows a path around the brain. But remarkably, it spares music memory. And so you see so many cases of folks who have, you know, full-blown Alzheimer's, but if they played piano or guitar, or they wrote songs, they don't forget the music. They don't forget. They may not be able to recall words when they speak, but they can remember all the words to a song when they sing. And the same thing on the piano. And this is such a gift, and such a gift for Junior, because when you're playing that music that you love and the music that stimulates you, in those early days of the disease, it relaxes you, right? You're agitated, you're frustrated, you can't find the right word, and the music relaxes you. And later on, as the disease takes hold and you become more quiet and maybe more vegetative, the music stimulates you and it wakes you up. And so the best thing an Alzheimer patient can have is a bond with music, never mind being an amazing musician like Junior, and then knowing that that part of the brain is just somehow miraculously going to be spared by the disease.
Gloria, in that vein, did you find that it was music from Junior's most distant past, more recent past? Did he still enjoy new music as he went through the course of the disease?
Mac, Junior did enjoy the music. And the day started with, as soon as you woke up, you turned the music on in the back, you turned the music on in the front. And the music was never turned off until the end of the day. And he was calmer with the music on. It got to a point in my life that I would not turn the TV on anymore, because he would live in the TV. Whereas with the music, he was living in the moment. and then we could pretend to dance together. I would sing with him. And even when he was confrontational, a combative, which he could be, or when he was telling me, get out of my face, you bitch. I said, well, can we listen to the music? Or tell me about Cannonball Adderley, Donna Washington, Dizzy. And it would calm him, but the music always stayed on, even till the end. And it continues to play. That's the first thing I do each day and at the end of my day, because it kept me calm. And when you're in this position as a caregiver and the person you love looks like the person, but they're no longer the person, the one bond is, for me and for him, was the music and the calmness that it gave me. And I stimulated his brain. But he played up until the day he passed. The day he had that fall, and I said, oh shit. He had just walked off the stage and he was honestly having a conversation with a fan.
Mind.
And I'm thinking, please do not talk all night. But he had just walked off the stage that particular night in his head. And so it was there. And I finally decided, you know what? It was a negative that night that ended his life, but it was a positive because he finished his life walking away from the piano, hugging a fan, and falling out of bed.
Jillian, Junior had a lifetime's worth of music for you to choose from. How did you decide what to feature in the film?
I think I think the first day we shot, they were recording in this in the studio. And I think this beautiful idea of Gloria as the Mockingbird and Junior as the sunset. I mean, that was an easy choice for a song, and that was Jubilation is a happy song that Junior wrote himself, and that felt so important to include. Um, and I think another song that was a favorite of Gloria's was Emily, and we used that a lot. I think he had such a wide range of emotion in his music. I think most of the music we used was from that CD that he had recorded when we were there to keep it in the moment. But luckily, his music that he recorded spanned quite a bit of time. Um, I just want to add one thing. It's kind of a remarkable thing that it's not just music, but he's a jazz musician, and the notion of improvisation and jazz is so important to dealing with this disease. And Gloria, as she had said herself, she's not the improviser. She's the one who took the notes every single day for 10 years of exactly what was happening. She's an educator, and so that's how she works. And there was a point I was watching her as she just realized that she couldn't control and that she had to learn to improvise the way Junior did. So there was something, just that kind of metaphor was just this beautiful bonus. And I know people are asking questions about music versus something else in connecting to your partner in this chat, but I mean, I'm sure that Rudy and Meg, you can speak to this, but I think just that notion of sort of going with the flow is the same as the jazz and improvising, whatever the interest is in, sort of being in the present and seeing what happens.
One of the powerful things about the film is to see Gloria, you and Junior still active in the music community, still having the opportunity for Junior to play with others, for you to, as a caregiver, take on the challenges of getting him to a studio and getting him into that context. Can you speak to, and Rudy, you comment on the power of community in sustaining him and sustaining you through this time?
In order to keep him in the community until it became too difficult to take him out, I was also his security guard because his personality had changed to a point that he could be very combative in person. But once he was at the piano, he was in his world and he was happy. And there are several performances. I would not permit anyone near Junior until after the performance because he needs to stay in that mindset of the music. And I had to stay there also to be there with him.
Uh, can
And
I
I
add?
think people cannot be embarrassed over this fact that my loved one has dementia. And I wanted people to know I need to protect him. You can enjoy the music, but until I give you permission to be in contact with him, you cannot. And I would intervene. So I did need to improvise. That was not my style at all.
The question about community, I mean, it was amazing. You know, Gloria, that was a big question in the film. I know what in making the film was her concern about who he would be, who she would be without the music, which was the community of the music and playing out. That was their entire relationship. And so that was, she really involved everybody. You know, she had people helping her to get him to concerts. Some of the band members would call, you know, and help her in the whole orchestration of bringing him out. And then when he couldn't go out anymore, she had them all come to him. And there's a scene in the film in which they're playing in the living room. And she continued to do that and bring it to him. That, and then, you know, she had parties with musicians, and it was a really beautiful. So I think in answer to that question, there was so much support for Gloria, and for Junior, and I think that made a huge difference seeing that, especially when sometimes families are not as supportive and you need the outside world to sort of help you. I mean, Gloria's family was supportive, but there were questions because they're protecting her. Um, and I think that there was, it was wonderful to see the way in which she reached out and the way people responded.
May I say thanks to Jillian, because there's a lot that I sometimes don't like to force myself to think about because it was not an easy journey. It was a successful journey, but it wasn't easy. But I did. You're right. I had people in all the time.
So Gloria and Rudy, I do want to get back to you to ask a little bit more about the science that's underlying all of this, but can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think it takes the experience of a long-term caregiver to understand how the definition of success has to change. So can you talk about how you think of this as a successful journey?
I would like for you to understand it's not an easy journey. But it can be successful. For me, I had to acknowledge for once in my life, I had no control over this disease. I could only control the way I interacted with Junior. But also, how do I take care of myself? By accepting the fact that I had to go with it. If he thought it was winter in the summer, I would say to you, it surely is. If he thought he played at a concert last night, oh, well, how did it go, babe? Oh, it was great. You know, I loved it. So whatever he thought, it was real in his world. not necessarily the world that I lived in. And did I really live in two worlds for at least 8 years? I did. Whatever was true in his world, it was truly true. And then I would walk away. I had to take time for myself, even if it was only 10 or 15 minutes. And I was at a point that I knew I needed help. And I would ask, can you come in and sit with him for 30 minutes? Which gave me a chance to walk out with my earphones and listen to music and just forget about the reality in apartment 3C. And you need to redefine love. Love to me was the music. The happy moments was the fact that he could shuffle to the bathroom to have a BM, as insignificant as it sounds. That was that was positive. He could still feed himself until the end. And I learned how to figure out what was keeping him calm. And calmness was with routine. So when the mind was gone, he knew every day once he entered the bathroom, the body knew, I'm in the bathroom, I'm sitting, and it means there's a bath. There's going to be a shave. And I think I approached this caregiver stage as if he was a toddler. And with toddlers, we keep routines. And I did the same with him. So I became I love the word he used, my soulmate, but I became his mom, his caregiver, his wife, his lover, and it worked. So for me, these small things he could do was the success. And I kept him home until the end. That was success. It doesn't need to be anything big. It's the small moments in which you can say, oh, he can still dress himself. He can still feed himself. He's not angry today or at this moment, but he's still with me. May not be the same person, but he's still with me because when they're gone, it's totally different. So
So, Rudy, can you comment about the power of community? I mean, how it is that someone like Junior, at a point where Gloria was needing to do so much caregiving at home, could still play music with others and respond to them in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, Jillian, you made an amazing, beautiful film, and I hope it wins lots of awards. And your filmmaking, is on par with the amazing caregiving that Gloria's given. We're an amazing team, and I was really happy to be a small part of this. You know, what the film shows along the lines of your question, Meg, is that Alzheimer's is a thief. It's an insidious thief that steals you of yourself. It steals your identity. It hits the parts of the brain that define your personality and who you are. And as you lose yourself, others also start to lose their sense of the personality of the person, the personality. But the soul, the real person, is deep inside. And the power of music is that musicians can express their soul. They can express their soul in their music. Their music goes on, their soul goes on. And Gloria giving Junior a chance to play again. Even I love the brushes on the magazines, for the drums, and that was so cool. And just to be able to do that, getting that sense of working with others, rolling with others, improvising with others, that was giving Junior allowing Junior to regain his sense of identity of who he was, personality, ego, all that stuff. Maybe those neurons have been decimated, but the real self is still there. And music was a gift that allowed him to realize that. And you provided that gift by bringing in others to play with him, because it's like a virtuous cycle. One musician reinforces the other. So it's really a beautiful thing that you did for him by allowing that to happen so often.
thank you.
Of You had a stroke. We've talked about Alzheimer's. We've talked about dementia. Can you explain for us what the distinction is between dementia and Alzheimer's and what can happen with a stroke and where you see hope for all of us, for all of them?
Well, dementia is the umbrella term, like vegetables and or fruit. And one of the most common fruits is the apple, and one of the most common forms of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. But mini strokes or strokes can create damage in the brain that would trigger the pathology of Alzheimer's disease. So stroke or neurovascular insults, as we say, can actually trigger the plaques and the tangles and inflammation that then takes on a life of its own and creating a vicious cycle. So I think the hope is that, first of all, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And so more people being heart healthy these days mean that they're reducing their risk for heart disease and stroke, and thus Alzheimer's disease. But I think right now we're at a turning point in Alzheimer's research where we have blood tests to detect this disease early, because the way we're going to beat it is early detection and early prevention. We have the early detection. We need meds that can affordably and safely afford prevention in a democratized way across all populations in our society, regardless of socioeconomic status. And I think we're on the way to that. But in the meantime, it's lifestyle. And I think folks are learning the importance of sleep, exercise, a healthy diet, but also healthy interaction with others, staying stimulated, interacting with others. This is what Gloria did for Junior, right? She allowed him to stay interactive, stimulated, getting the joy of being with others, and playing music, which was at the very center of his soul. So this film is an example, a true example about how to deal with Alzheimer's disease. I don't know of a film that does it better. And really, Jillian and Gloria can't be congratulated enough for doing such an amazing job.
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I feel really privileged to have gotten to see this film early like this and to get to hear from all of you. We've got a question from the audience, which is one I really appreciate, which is how can we help share this film? How can we bring this story to more people and let them get to see this love story in action as well?
It's right now it's in film festivals, but what our main idea of the film is that people can bring it to their communities and show it to people, other people. They can bring it, we've brought it to senior living communities. You can bring it just in a group. You can share it with family members. You can bring it to a community center, a church, a synagogue, a school, like that. We want to distribute the film not on Netflix, pointedly, not on any platform like that. We want to put it in the hands of the people to use it as a tool. And we really, we're so excited actually to be able to have this screening with Cure Alzheimer's. And this is our dream idea. So anybody who is interested in the film, I think should reach out to Cure Alzheimer's, and you guys will put people in touch with us so that we can give you access. Yeah, I think that's the answer.
We will send out an email with information about how to do that because we really do believe that more people should get to see this and get to share this story. So again, thank you all for being our panelists today. Thank you so much for making this film, for sharing your story, for helping people understand what success can look like in this context and what love can do and what music can do. We're very grateful for that. We're grateful for you, and we look forward to great success for the film at festivals and in communities around the country.
Thank you so much.
And
Thanks,
thank you.
everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.